All right, today we're going to take a look at section 2 of chapter 15 about Scotland and Wales. We'll take a look at some of the major physical characteristics of Scotland. We'll talk about how Scotland and Wales have preserved their cultural identities. Well, let's take a look at how technological changes have affected economic activities in Wales. You can see here Scotland is in the purplish color. Wales is a small piece of land to the west of England in red. And we will now move on. But there was an English writer that once said, "A Scot is British, yes, and he will sing, 'There will always be an England.' But he murmurs to himself, 'As long as Scotland is there.'" This story reveals something about how the Scots view England. The two nations have been tied together politically for almost 300 years, and still, Scotland has always kept its own identity. The same can be said of Wales, which has been united with England since the late 1200s. Now, Scotland occupies nearly 1/3 of the land area in the United Kingdom, but less than 10% of the nation's population lives there. The landscape is very rugged, and it has marks of heavy glaciers that have moved across the northern part of Great Britain during the last ice age. We call that glaciation. Scotland itself is divided into three formal regions: the Northern Highlands, the Central Lowlands, and the Southern Uplands. And you can see right here the Cheviot Hills, which is an area right through here, and the Tweed River are what separates Scotland from England. Now, the Highlands region is a large high plateau with many lakes called lochs, which are carved by retreating glaciers. The Grampian Mountains cut across the region with peaks reaching past 4,000 feet, and both coasts are etched deeply by the sea with inlets called firths. Much of the highlands are covered with moors, or broad treeless rolling plains, and the moors, in turn, are dotted with bogs, which are areas of wet, spongy ground. Steady winds off the Atlantic Ocean bring really abundant rainfall to the moors, and the dampness of the soil limits plant growth to grasses and low shrubs, like purple heather. Now, the land, water, and climate of the highlands are well suited for the region's economic activities of fishing and sheep herding. A few people produce a type of hand-woven woolen cloth known as tweed. This Scottish home industry has continued over hundreds of years, in sharp contrast to the factory production of textiles in England. Now, south of the Highlands runs a long lowland region. Nearly 75% of Scotland's people live in this region, stretching between Glasgow and Edinburgh, which are two main cities. Industry came to the central lowlands in the early 1800s. The Clyde River near Glasgow grew into a huge shipbuilding center. The Clyde shipbuilders played a major role in establishing the United Kingdom as the world's leading naval power. Since the mid-1900s, however, heavy industry in Scotland has fallen on hard times. Old factory centers such as Glasgow have declined, and the loss of jobs has caused more than 1/3 of Glasgow's residents to leave since about 1960. There you can see a picture of them building, looks like the Aquitania, which was a ship that was built. Now, the third region are the Southern Uplands, which are closest to the English border. They're primarily a sheep-raising region. The Tweed River Valley, their woolen mills are kept well supplied with wool by area farmers. The Cheviot Hills, the highest in the area, give way to rolling plateaus worn down by glaciers. Medieval abbeys and low hilly landscapes draw many visitors to the region. Sorry about the phone, I'm not going to get it. Now, new industries are slowly taking the place of mining, steelmaking, and shipbuilding. Oil discoveries in the North Sea off the northeastern shore of Scotland have helped the economies of some cities such as Aberdeen. Computer and electronic businesses have also developed along the Clyde and Tweed rivers. Some people call the Clyde Valley the Silicon Glen, after the area in California known as Silicon Valley. A glen, by definition, is a narrow valley. Here's an oil rig in the North Sea, by the way. You can see pretty high tech. So here are all the different places in the North Sea where we have gas wells or fields in red. And then the green shows you an oil well or a field. So natural gas is in red, petroleum oil in green, and the more faded colors, like up here in Esmond, Forbes, and Gordon, these are areas that no longer produce. Now, although politically united with England, Scotland has retained its own culture. When the Scottish and English parliaments were united through the Act of Union in 1707, Scotland kept important trading and political rights. Many Scots also remained members of the Presbyterian Church rather than joining the Church of England. In 1997, Scottish voters approved the creation of a new Scottish Parliament. A small minority of Scottish people even promote the idea of once again becoming a separate country. Now in Wales, we have a similar spirit of pride and independence that exists in the country, or the region, which also has a culture pattern distinct from that of England. They have their own capital city, their own postage stamps, their own flag, and their own language. However, Wales is strongly influenced by its powerful neighbor of England, which conquered them in 1284. There you can see the Wales flag and their postage stamps, which cost 3 pence. Now, Wales is really a peninsula of the island of Great Britain, and it's about the size of Massachusetts. It has a landscape similar to that of Scotland, and on the map that is in your book, if you look in your book on page 306, you actually find the Highland area of northern Wales. There are lowlands that run along the southern coast near Cardiff, and we have the Cambrian Mountains in central Wales. Now, Wales enjoys a marine west coast climate like the rest of Great Britain. However, the rain-carrying winds from the Atlantic pass over Wales before reaching England. So Wales usually receives more rain than southern England. You can see that on this map here. The darker colors represent the more millimeters of rain each year. Now, since the 1500s, Welsh representatives have sat in Parliament. Some have risen to high office in the British government, including that of the Prime Minister. Even so, the Welsh have fought very hard for their own cultural independence. One of the keys to preserving Welsh culture is their language. Most of the 2.9 million people speak English, but nearly 20% still speak Welsh as their first language. This language was handed down from the Celtic people who lived in Wales for thousands of years, and Welsh is spoken mainly in the mountains of northern Wales. In the 1980s, Welsh patriots fought for and won the right to broadcast television programs entirely in Welsh. So here's a map where you can see the amount of Welsh speakers in 1961, and now you can see the amount of Welsh speakers in 2001 in the same area. So the amount of people that speak Welsh is greatly decreasing. Now you can see it in even bigger. So 80% of people in these areas in 1961 spoke Welsh, and then you can see in 2001 just a small portion of the area spoke Welsh. 80% of them spoke Welsh, sorry. Now the economic history of Wales is very similar to that of England and Scotland, being in close proximity. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, industry and coal mining changed the landscape and economy of southern Wales. Mines in the Rhondda Valley just north of the capital city of Cardiff became some of Britain's biggest coal producers. By the mid-1900s, however, heavy industries in Wales had fallen behind in technology. By the 1980s, most of the coal mines in the Rhondda Valley had closed down. Unemployment rates soared, and a lot of students leaving high school could not find jobs despite the arrival of new petroleum refineries. In the 1990s, the situation improved as foreign investment in Wales, as in Scotland, provided new jobs in high-tech industries. Some people in Wales also promoted tourism for those interested in seeing the traditional Welsh way of life. So, like I said, the situation improved in the 90s. We had some foreign investors, a lot of them from the United States came in. They started providing new jobs in high-tech industries, computers, electronics. And so now they promote their lifestyles to those interested in coming to see how the Welsh live a traditional way of life.